digital agriculture learning series that we've been organizing over a number of weeks now. And in this series, we invite innovators, thought leaders, World Bank and other practitioners to share their experience in terms of transforming the agriculture and food sector with data-driven and digital agriculture. You can find actually the link to the webinar series was on the invitation to this webinar. Today, our conversation is going to revolve around the work of SOIT, and we're going to discuss in particular how SOIT is accelerating the sustainable intensification of agriculture in the MENA region and in the Africa region, working in particular in Morocco, in Tunisia, in Ethiopia, and in Senegal. In the MENA region and in the Africa region, the World Bank is making concerted efforts to accelerate the transformation of the food system to increase its sustainability in the context of climate change. It is a sector that remains of paramount importance in those regions for food security, for job creation, and also for social inclusion and stability. And working closely with countries in those regions and with our partners, we have identified digital agriculture and data-driven agriculture as a key avenue to accelerate the transformation of the sector and address some of the very structural challenges that it has been facing, be it better management of very scarce land and water resources. The MENA region is one of the more water scarce regions in the world. And addressing, of course, improving resilience to climate change or creating jobs, a big issue in both regions, in particular, creating more and better jobs for the many young people who are entering the job market. So the interest in digital solutions for the sector is huge in the region, be it from decision makers in government, from the private sector, from farmers themselves, and how those tools can help with better decision making, better resource management, improve service delivery, access to finance, and also mitigate the many risks that farmers face in the region. In that context, we have published last year a report focusing on the Mashrek countries, digital revitalization of the agri-food sector in the Mashrek. And I think we will put the link in the chat box. It's a report that documents the current contribution of the agri-food sector in selected countries in the Mashrek, Iraq, Lebanon, and Jordan, and looks at how selected technologies can impact the efficiency, the equity, and the environmental sustainability of the sector. It looks also at the current application of digital technologies in those countries, the state of the ecosystem, and what relevant policies and instruments are available to strengthen that ecosystem and make sure that we can accelerate the diffusion, the adoption of those technologies, maximize their positive impacts, and also manage some of the risks associated with them. Beyond this publication, we are continuing our work with those countries and working on a roadmap on how we can operationalize the recommendations of the report, and also in that context initiated a series of digital competition. The one this year was focused on women innovators and digital entrepreneurs in Lebanon. Elsewhere in the region, in Morocco, we are supporting the new Green Generation strategy with a program for results, and which is also jointly financed with the Agence Française de Développement, AFD. And a big focus of this program is enhancing the digitalization of agriculture and climate smart agriculture. Developing digital advisory services for farmers is one of the important areas of focus under this program. And some of the things that it aims to achieve include the creation of a National Agriculture Advisory data center to provide the data necessary to produce easy to use advice for farmers and for those who work with farmers, with a specific attention to the needs of women farmers. It's also promoting precision agriculture and looking at strong linkages there and work with research institutions and extension services. Overall, it aims to strengthen the ecosystem for digital agriculture and enabling the private sector to provide digital and climate smart technologies to farmers and for farmers to make better use of those technologies. Beyond this work at the country level, we are also looking at how we could further promote the exchange of knowledge, experiences, informations across the continent and across the region, so that we can foster a very robust ecosystem for the digital agriculture development. So today's webinar is particularly relevant for the MENA region, for the Africa region. And I'm delighted to welcome Hamza, who is the co-founder of Sowit. Sowit is an African startup that offers digital solutions to enable farmers to better manage irrigation water, a very, very important topic across the region, and in particular in the context of climate change, and also to better manage their fertilizer needs for a range of major crops across the continent, such as cereal, citrus, sugarcane. So it currently has operations in 4 countries: Morocco, Ethiopia, Senegal, and Tunisia. And I guess Hamza will tell us about their plans for further expansion. So we will hear from Hamza about the solution that Sowit offers for farmers in MENA and Africa. After which we will turn to our discussants to react to this presentation and to provide their perspectives. And we will finish with a Q&A session before concluding the webinar. So as a point of order, please do not interrupt our speakers. If you have any questions, please do type them in the chat box, either during the presentations or during the Q&A, and we will turn to them at the end of the session in the Q&A. So without further ado, let me turn to Hamza for Sowit. Very warm welcome to you. We're very delighted that you are with us today, and over to you now.
Thank you very much, Marianne, for the introduction and the role of digital technologies today. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Maybe Marianne, it's from your end. I don't know if it's okay for you right now. Okay, so I will move forward. So thank you, Marianne, for the introduction and the role of digital technologies today, especially in Africa, when farmers are facing the environmental and food challenge combined at the same time, and indeed where natural resources are being more and more complex to manage. Thank you, Parmesh and Vivek, also for organizing. It's been a long time we've been discussing around these sessions that are very interesting also to us, because it makes us stay at the state-of-the-art forefront of bringing the right innovation that are aligning all the players across the value chain and providing value for farmers at the end of the day. So I will start sharing my screen and actually sharing a video, because I think it's better to start with getting a testimony from farmers before moving forward and talking about the role of Sowit in helping them on a daily basis. So I will share my screen.
اسم شاكر مازيغ، المسؤول التقني عن القطاع الفلاحية المتواجدة بسوق ثلاث الغرب. المساحة الإجمالية 150 هكتار، 72 هكتار ديال الحوامض. قبل ما نتعرفوا على شركة السويس كانوا عندنا بعض المشاكل بحال في السقي، بحال الأمراض، بحال شكل الفيماجين، بحال شكل لاموش بلونش. وملي تعرفنا عليهم بقاو ياخذوا داكشي الصور عبر الأقمار الصناعية وكيتبعوا معنا، وداكشي اللي تنستاشروا معاهم وداكشي اللي قالوا لنا كنخدموا به، ودابا غادا ان شاء الله الضيعه في تحسن. هذا التطبيق سهل علينا بالنسبه للمساحات المزروعه على حساب السقي، واش نزيدوا في عدد ساعات السقي ولا نهبطوا من عدد الساعات ديال السقي. اهم حاجه اللي كاينه في هذا الشيء كامل هي واحد المهندس زراعي كتوفروا لنا شركه السويس كيتبع معنا الحاله الصحيه ديال الضيعه الفلاحيه.
Okay, so actually it was important to start with the video because sometimes technology is perceived as a nice to have solution or nice to have way to face the challenges and the problems that farmers are facing every day. Actually, in the countries where we do operate and with the farmers from less than an acre to hundreds that are today using data to optimize their most critical operations is definitely a must-have. And Marianne, you touched upon one of the most critical points, which is, for example, water. Today, there are farmers that invested in olive trees, for example, and that do not find water at 100 meters and are then digging deeper and deeper, getting saline water at the end of the day and not being able to sustain their activities and their people. So the problem we are facing is not a nice to have issue of providing the XML data that helps increasing the yield. The problem is the problem of sustainably producing year after year and sustainably enabling the whole territories to live, which is a bigger problem when that is faced in Africa and especially in the countries where we operate, because only 13% of farmers use information as simple as weather information. How can you know what quantity to irrigate if you get 46 degrees Celsius or 22 if you are not looking at this data? Because also farmers tend to realize only a portion of their yield potential. And because at the end of the day, they are also facing increasing stress in terms of availability of natural resources, such as water, oil, soil quality. We are facing this problem by providing them with solutions that enable them to optimize the most critical decision. To make it simple, we are processing mainly imagery, your smartphone imagery, the satellites imagery, drone imagery, wherever imagery, as long as we are able to provide the farmers with daily insights that help them positioning on the most critical operations and sustainably intensifying their yields. These solutions are around multiple crops, as Marianne touched upon. Forage, for example, maize, because harvest time is critical to get the right quality of forage and the right premiums on the market. Fertilization, as you can see now, the cost of nitrogen is skyrocketing, doubled in the last 2 months, and farmers are wondering, will I sow this year Will I go through my cereal season, given the costs that are involved and given how tight are the margins? This is kind of answers we are providing, saying there is still a way through, which is optimizing these inputs and finding your balance, your economic and social balance. Irrigation, there is one of the most important topics because irrigation has been conceived and practiced in a time where water was pretty much available, especially in certain regions, in certain countries, and where now farmers are facing this stress with no clue to adapt because they were relying on large availability, putting up to 12,000 metric cubes of water per hectare of citrus and discovering today that they have no more than 5,000 to allocate per hectare. Yields that are very important to align all the players along the value chain. So estimating yields, simply taking pictures with your smartphone of the trees, mango trees, citrus trees, and be able to know what is the quantity you are going to be producing, not only to optimize your selling and logistical processes, but also to be able to manage your cash. And finally, the orchard health, which is regular mapping of the plot every week to make sure that every time there is a threat, every time there is an issue, it is discovered early enough to be manageable and not to end up having problems that are very hard to deal with except for the next season. I will go quite fast through the different solutions as the objective is to more share also on the vision and what we are trying to build with all the players that are around the farmer and the value chain. Our solution are web, mobile, USSD, SMS, everything the farmer has access to get this data. It could be receiving at 7 a.m. every day what quantity of metric cubes you need to irrigate, or receiving simply what is your expected yield to get your positions on the market. What we sell are subscription per year, providing their farmers with the opportunity on a daily basis to optimize their yields and their operations. Subscriptions that start around $10 per hectare per year, up to around $80 per hectare per year. Farmers that are less than 5 hectares have access to pretty much all our solutions 100% free, because we believe this is the only way we can close this digital gap by spreading the information all around. I will give some snapshots on the solutions just to get some practical understanding before moving to the next step. As you see, for forage, we partnered with Danone, and as Marianne touched upon, Sowit is a company, African company, but now Sowit is operating as well in Brazil and Russia with its solution enabling to optimize forage. It started here in Africa, in Ethiopia, Morocco, Senegal, Tunisia, but it started first to answer needs that all farmers in the world have, especially in emerging countries where information is scarce, because there isn't this technical institutes that are really there every day, universities present behind the farmers, advisory well spread. There isn't much of this, and we are trying to fill this gap. For the fertilization, it enables to get the right amount of fertilizer you should fertilize, not only from what your crop needs, but also from what you can do in terms of yield objectives, in terms of weather, because putting nitrogen when you don't have rain is counterproductive. So it's taking into account all these different rules in order to drive the right decision. At the end of the day, the farmer is the one deciding what he or she needs to do based on all this information. As you can see, we've been working on now thousands of hectares covering a lot of land with this advice. And here the example of Morocco, plots for all Moroccan regions producing cereals, which enabled us to calibrate the algorithms and then to scale them up in multiple countries based on all the variety of genetics, practices, and environments we've been observing the last years in Morocco, Tunisia, and Ethiopia, mainly for cereals. Irrigation, indeed, this is one of the most stressful topic, as we are seeing more and more farmers stopping their activity because of water shortage. It's a topic that is we are trying to push forward, providing them with GPS-based weather conditions and irrigation timings based on the infrastructure they already have, making sure that what all the countries invested in terms of drip irrigation and irrigation schemes could be operationalized by the right data. Because it is one thing to invest billions in being able to set irrigation systems, it's one other thing to make the most of them. As you can see here, an example with the very accurate GPS-based evapotranspiration in millimeters, and then for each single irrigation sector, the exact timing that needs to be applied. And on the solution, I will end up with the yield, because this is one of the most also pressing topics. Farmers not being able to sell right prices and to position early enough in the market. We are providing a solution, a mobile application that enables to take pictures of the trees and then to have a better idea on what the yield is going to be. We partnered with the CIRAD, which is a research center based in Montpellier, to build the solution and have the strong scientific backing for all the crops we are covering, and are now scaling it up also because of the support we are getting from the Ministry of Agriculture in Morocco and local authorities in Senegal. You can see again, the process is simple. You have a guided sampling, and then you just take your app. You need no connectivity. Your smartphone, even low-tech, has a GPS. It takes you to the area you need to take in picture. You take pictures, and immediately you get the yield of your trees and of your orchard. So I will show a small example here, because I believe that at the end of the day, what matters is the farmer's insights.
أنا سميتي سريدي يوسف.
Put it in English. Sorry. Here. Sorry for the lag.
أنا سميتي سريدي يوسف، مدير تقني بمجموعة انفروي، اللي هي واحد الشركة كتعمل في مجال الحوامض. هنا واحد الجروب اللي من 2008 وحنا في هاد المنطقة ديال النجاط ما بين مراكش وما بين مينتانوت. كنخدموا على مساحة تقدر ب 180 هكتار. غنتكلم لكم على واحد التطبيق اللي حنا نفعناه، اللي هو قبل ما كناش كنخدموا به، ولكن دابا مع هاد التقنيات اللي كتكون في المجال الفلاحي على غرار مجالات اخرى، هو كيخصنا نديروا تقدير ديال الانتاج ديالنا. هادشي هذا كيطلب منا بزاف ديال الوقت، كيطلب منا بزاف ديال الموارد البشريه اللي غيحسبوا واللي غادي يقدروا يعطيوك الحساب ديال الداخل، والشجره كتدخل في وسط اختها، والحب اللي عندك لداخل، الحب اللي عندك على برا في التحت في الفوق، اللي هي واحد المهمه صعيبه. وفي المرحله الثانيه كنوصلوا حتى لدرجه انه كنجنيو الحب ديالنا، كنعمروه في الصنادق وكنديوه لعندنا لاستاسيون، وكنبدا نحسبوه بوحده بوحده. هنا كيبان لكم العمل بانه مضني، والعمل كيطلب بزاف ديال الوقت وبزاف ديال الموارد البشريه، وفي اغلبيه الوقت ما كنكونوش قراب للحقيقه. هنا جا التطبيق ديال هاد الشركه تصويت، هاد التطبيق سميتو سويلد. هاد التطبيق هذا كيعاون واحد الدرجه كبيره، كينقص عندنا موارد بشريه، كيربحنا في الوقت، ودرنا معاهم واحد الاتفاقيه العام اللي فات لا سيزون لا دانيير سيزون، وداكشي اللي عطاونا زعما كنا مبهرين بانه التقارب ما بين الارقام اللي عطاونا وما بين الارقام اللي وصلوا المنطقه الستاسيون دومبالاج محطه التلفيف، انه كانت واحد طون ونص، طون و200، طون و300 هي اللي كانت ديال الفرق ما بين هذاك الشيء الناس اللي عطاونا بهذا التطبيق ديالهم وما بين السلعه اللي حنا وصلناها لمحطه التلفيف.
So which enabled me to transition to the part 2 of the presentation, which is the accelerators we today relied on to accelerate in very short time and cover 45,000 hectares under service, and also our vision for a strong alignment with international organizations such as the World Bank, governments, farmers, research institute to build upon this growth and create the forefront of efficient and sustainable African farming in the next years. Our vision is we want to get to these results, and we got to the results of 45,000 hectares very quickly because we signed key partnership with players across the value chain. First, research institutes that are very important to build solutions with the right scalability and scientific backing, meaning precision and credit with farmers. Leading government institutions such as the Ministry of Agriculture in Morocco or the Agency of Agricultural Transformation in Ethiopia that provided the right ground and trust relationship in order to accelerate the use of the service all across the different territories. And international organizations, so for example, such as IFC, the International Fund of Agricultural Development, or the World Bank, that provides the right understanding of the role of these technologies and of the challenge that not only the farmer is facing, but all the ecosystem, the agricultural value chains, but the economy as a whole. As a result, we've been able, through our mobile and web app, to cover in 18 months 45,000 hectares under service, and relying on very low-tech technologies such as integrating operators with simple SMS and USSD, providing them data through short messages to know what quantity of water to irrigate or simply what quantity of fertilizer to use, being able to adapt the solutions to low connectivity environments, as you need a smartphone to estimate yields, but everything algorithms are embedded in the application, so you only need the connectivity when setting it up and you don't need it after. And finally, being able to position also with leading programs such as the We4F, the program for food and energy, which enables also to accelerate based on the environmental results that are achieved by such solutions in terms of preserving natural resources, but also providing employments all across the value chain. We've built an international team in 4 different locations, and Ethiopia is developing now. It will be the 5th location of SOIT. Actually, there are 6 locations because in France we are based in Montpellier and Paris. We are now around a team of 30, able not only from one hand to build the algorithms with the right research institutes, but to operationalize them on a daily basis. And this is what's very important, as our end goal is not to build technology, our end goal is to serve farmer. So technology has a sense only if it serves the right way the farmers. That's why we are present in multiple countries. Also through the support of CTA, developed an association called Africa Goes Digital with multiple companies, enabling to create the right momentum in terms of digital use, but also in terms of presence in the market and of ability to serve farmers on a daily basis. And as I touched upon, scientific leaders were very important, as they were providing the right support in order to build solutions that are strong and precise enough to be scalable and then aligned with our objective to cover millions of hectares in the continent, but at the same time, solutions that were operational enough. And for example, the CIRAD, through its division Ortis based in Senegal and its partnership with ISRA, which is the local research agronomic institute, accelerated the development of the yield estimation solution. We build solution also to crowdsource the data, and this is also why it's very important for us to align with organizations such as the World Bank, because the more data is crowdsourced, the more we can create value on it, and the more it could serve the entire ecosystem, not only the scientific company, the scientific ecosystem, but also the farmers. And as you can see here in an example, multiple farms over which a lot of information has been collected on the ground, and then enabling you to get to very low margin of errors when you are estimating, simply because your ground truth is strong, consistent, and data crowdsourced. Because there is no way, even if you have a team of 1,500 people on the ground, you would be able to source consistently data at a certain time with a certain quality. Product, user-centered, and here also projects along with the World Bank and international organizations were very important, because they are piloting the change and providing the ground in certain projects in order to build solutions and to interact with other companies building solutions, which is very important, not to create silos, but to end up creating interoperability and enabling farmer to navigate through these different information solutions and to get the most of it. Mobile is probably something that was very important, building a full mobile solution, relying from one side on a mobile app and from the other on USSD and very simple SMS communication. Because as we observed in the continent, farmers are now doing more and more things on their mobiles and having also expectation of what it could provide more as a very accurate weather data at a GPS point. This is, for example, free for smallholders that saw it, or at the analysis of the plot with the possibility to share it and to get more insight on it, or to directly get in touch with the agronomic support center of SOIT that enables you to understand what's happening on the field and to take action. And I will end up with the partnerships, because I believe this is what's enabled to create the right momentum and to build right solutions. First, scientific partnerships with other organizations that were very important in building the solutions. Market and agribusinesses, because we talk a lot about smallholders and the ability to offer the services and the information in a low connectivity or no connectivity environment. But we need also to talk about agribusinesses that are tracking this entire market, putting the right standard and insisting on this highest standard. This is the knowledge we are getting into our solution, and this is what we are spreading out as loudly as possible. And finally, institutions. So it was financed by a DC-based impact VC, enabling to get the right alignment in terms of creating value for farmers in Africa, but also got the support of the European Space Agency, for example, through the Copernicus program, or through, from local institutions such as the Caisse Centrale de Garantie in Morocco, or, for example, the Ministry of Agriculture. And we believe that without institutions, there is no way you can hope for a scale when addressing smallholders, as they built the trust relationships and are gateways to diffuse and spread all this value. So thank you very much for attending the presentation and for the opportunity. At the end of the day, our goal is to diffuse and spread this information and to make sure it is adapted enough to the challenges of farmers that are in the different territories where we operate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hamza, and congratulations on the achievement so far. It's quite impressive and fascinating to hear about the work that you've been doing with farmers and really addressing the needs of a broad range of farmers. You mentioned we saw some of the bigger ones, but you also mentioned that you're working with some of the smaller ones, and and also your presentation highlighted the importance of partnerships, right? Whether it's with the private sector, with the research institutions, government, and others. I'm sure our participants will have a lot of questions about that. I just want to remind them to enter in the chat box any question they may have for you. So we will address that. And I'm now going to turn to our discussants, starting with Carlo Bravi, who is a senior economist at the FAO Investment Center. And Carlo has been focusing on the digital agricultural transition. Carlo, over to you for some reflections on what we've heard, and also on what we can do, as partners in terms of enabling solutions such as the ones that were presented today, and strengthening the whole ecosystem in the region. Over.
Thank you, Marianne. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you, Parmesh and Vivek, for inviting me. It's a pleasure, and thanks, Hamshad, for the presentation. It's quite impressive, in fact. And there's no doubt that what you're doing in terms of using digital for optimizing natural resource use in agriculture is absolutely central, especially water, especially in Morocco and the NENA region and so on. So the relevance of what you're doing is unquestionable. I would probably want to comment on the aspect of how you will push this solution to the small farmers. Knowing Morocco, knowing many other countries in Africa, working also in Asia and partly Latin America, we are observing this challenge of moving these solutions to the smallholders. And when I say smallholders, I mean 2 hectares, 1 hectare, and so on. So the large majority of actors in these rural areas, which are basically contributing or potentially could contribute much more to the food system efficiency, and are not. There's some basic, let's say, digital building blocks that should be probably implemented. And these are the literacy, I think you mentioned that. These are the connectivity, and you mentioned way to go around connectivity. Instead of focusing on online, you go offline, you do all range of technical solution to have the best possible outcome in terms of connecting these farmers on and off. But also registering them into platform, and then there's a challenge in using the data according to data privacy laws and so on. So the data governance, I think, is quite big, and it's going to get bigger and bigger because data is the new gold. So it is very important. So basically the comment is we definitely agree that this is central topic, and how can we reach out to the millions? Because as Marianne was saying, we have millions of farmers out there in Africa, Asia, and Latin America that could be potentially using and improving a lot their operations from natural resource point of view, from equity point of view, from income point of view, you name it. It's all there potentially, but how can we bring this to the small farmers? I would probably stop here in terms of commenting on this. This is a big comment, I think, and probably you will give us some answers and some compliments. On the potential use or potential what FAO is also doing could be interesting in digital agriculture, and how we can collaborate better. We're already doing a lot, I think. FAO has this digital geospatial platform that basically is part of this hand-in-hand initiative, which is about country-led and country-specific platform to accelerate the achievement of SDG 1, SDG 2. It's basically a gigantic data stack that puts together all the data that FAO has and makes it available to farmers, to government mostly, not yet to farmers. It has implementation of national policies and strategy. It improves planning. It improves also reduction of food losses and waste potentially. It allocates better all the infrastructure relevant for value chains and so on. This is one initiative. The other one is the digital village. As the name says, it's about digitizing a small-scale initiative and trying to do stock taking and lessons learning from that in terms of feasibility, connectivity, internet access, similar topics as to what I was mentioning, support policy, education environment. There's inclusiveness aspects, bringing all beneficiaries and technology developers and so on. The important part of this digital village initiative, which is present already in 13 Asian countries and is expanding in the other two continents, Africa and Latin America, will be to do the stock take and basically take the lessons to scale up. On Marianne's point about how can we work together more, we can definitely, because demand is growing. It's growing by the day, by the week. I'm noticing this. And we are already doing with colleagues in World Bank under the collaborative program, the CP program we have a digital project repository, which we are working with Vivek and Maria Agnes. We have digital agricultural transformation in Indonesia with Animej. There's a digital agri-data stack in Tajikistan and a digital solution for reducing food losses and waste in Guatemala. These are all potentially scalable initiatives. Coming up, there's digital agricultural transformation in Malaysia and Uzbekistan on agro-logistics, using digital for agro-logistics. And we also have, my last point is, we also have a partnership which is starting with UNCDF, United Nations Development Capital Fund, which has a very good capacity in digital agriculture for small-scale farming and fintech, digital finance solutions. And we are going to have scaling up or interesting pilots also with World Bank, under World Bank projects such as the PROPS, which is the Regional Sahel Pastoralist Support Project, where digital solutions are being tested and scaled for transhumant pastoralist systems. We're also planning to have a digitization of the cocoa value chain in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire with World Bank and EU, just to mention some interesting potentially. So there's a lot of work we can do together. There's interesting opportunities, and yeah, it's an opening ground for all of us, and quite enthusiastic to work on this. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Carlo. Thanks for sharing all those very interesting examples, and also take a note of your question to Hamza on the question of reaching out to small farmers, and we'll get back to that. I'm going to turn to our second discussant, Armine Yorgeli, who is working here in the World Bank as an ag specialist, and who is one of her major areas of focus are also digital agriculture and climate smart agriculture. I mean, over to you to also share your perspectives, your reflections.
Thank you, Marianne. I hope you can hear me well. And thanks for invitation. And I want to start with congratulating Hamza with his startup. I think it's always inspiring to see success stories and the leadership of youth of putting this important agenda forward. I personally want to congratulate also on the innovations that can contribute tremendously to the region, which is under the high impact of the climate change. So any innovations related to improvement of the water management, irrigation, it's really very valuable input for the region, as well as the inputs in improved fertilizers. It's really improving the health of people, making the pollution to environment less, also reducing the emissions that contribute to climate change. So big congratulations and kudos. So from my perspective, I wanted to hear also what you think is the one big essential step for bringing your innovation to scale. And when you started, what was the most challenging kind of milestone for you, where you wish you will have more support or the guidances from other stakeholders, like a public sector, for example? I know that some of them startups are struggling, especially in the agriculture sector, with the data collection. You don't know where are the farmers, which kind of crops they are cultivating. So this kind of a data is not always accessible for especially startups. So I think we all kind of agreed during the discussion today that we need to create an enabling ecosystem. And it can be both looking on the digital aspects, like, you know, improving the network coverage, making it more accessible, making digital literacy skills more accessible also in the rural areas. So I think Vivek, will it be possible for you to mute? Yeah, thanks. And then also, I mean, in the bank, we're working also on non-digital side. No, I mean, even if you have a good digital skills and access, without good roads, for example, e-commerce will not thrive. So we really need to look on the whole enabling ecosystem, but also we need to look closer on the farmers and create a behavior change. I think when you look in terms of the stakeholders, farmers are very conservative to change their practices coming from generations. And so we really need to create an evidence and provide usability of the tools and how they can create the revenues. And once they see it, I believe the adoption rate will come in. So in terms of what we are doing at a bank, so we work in a diverse areas, and I will bring an example of the work that we did in Mashrek, and thanks Vivek for sharing the recent publication that we did. We take a stock of a general ecosystem around the agriculture and digital agriculture, and look for existing startups, what are the gaps in terms of connectivity, privacy regulations or literacy, and what are the most promising solutions. And we recently published this publication together with our partners from American University of Beirut, FAO, ESCWA, and CMI. So it was a very interesting collaboration. And also we had colleagues from Ministry of Agriculture joining us as co-authors, and the local universities as well from Iraq and Jordan and Lebanon. So it was a very interesting effort. And then we took this effort on the next step, that we created a digital app for her competition to really help young people to innovate around this sector, bring awareness about the potential and in the agri-food sector, in terms of making it more modern and lucrative for young people. And we had a very good successful stories. We launched it together with the Mashrek Gender Facility. Had around 300 startups interested to contribute to this activity, and we had the 3 winners that received incubation support. And we're upscaling this activity in other countries like Morocco and Iraq, hopefully in this year. We are also working, for example, in Morocco, the team is working on a linking public sector with the private sector, because quite often there's no linkages, especially for the young startups. It's very challenging to get in touch with the public sector and show how their innovations can be useful also to the public sector. At the same time, for example, in the Morocco team is working with the government of Morocco on a new program where it's actually digitalizing the services of the Ministry of Agriculture and helping them to use it, for example, for the early warning systems, to improve the efficiency of their operations. So, I mean, I think digitalization is overall going to help tremendously to increase the efficiency and hopefully equity and environmental sustainability in the sector, but it's also should be tailored very carefully in order not to jeopardize any of the privacy or the rights of the farmers. So overall, I think we need to work together on promoting the overall enabling ecosystem in order for young also startups to thrive in this space. And I will stop here. I'm looking forward also to the discussion next. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amine. Thank you for sharing your perspective, and also some more questions for you, Hamza, in terms of and then difficult questions, but also questions about the challenges when you started and what helped you overcome them. I'm going to turn to our third discussant, last but not least, Giacomo Rambaldi, who is also an expert on digitalization of agriculture and has spent many years working on the topic, including at the CTA. Giacomo, over to you for some reflections, both from, I guess, what we heard from Hamza and also from other discussants.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to this event. I must say that I'm stunned by what the Soviet is doing. I mean, I've been checking their website from time to time, and frankly speaking, every time I look at it, there is a new solution. And if you are looking for innovation, really these guys are really innovative, and they come up with solutions which are pretty unique. I mean, the solution on counting, on making the estimate of citrus on the trees is unique. I didn't see it anywhere else. They are also looking at yield estimations, and I remember when I was at CTA, we started supporting them. This is 2 years ago. And 2 years in a digital age are a long period, and they were one of the first who were trying to look at it, and also from a small scale perspective. I did also some check because there was one slide which showed the team of Soviet, and I was impressed by the number of female professionals which are part of Soviet. Had a look at LinkedIn, and they have 40% of female professionals in their company. I mean, these are not secretaries typing, but professionals. And I know that when we funded a project in Ethiopia, they fielded 2 professional drone pilots and agronomists, and these were female operators. And I found this really rewarding and really as an example of integrating women in a discipline, the technical discipline, which is usually male dominated. So I must compliment Soviet for this effort. I think it's part of their policy, and I would recommend that. I have 2 questions, and I was wondering whether Hamza should reply on the spot to my questions. One question is, you have now, after 1 year of operations, 45,000 hectares where you provide services. And on one slide, you were saying 1 million hectares in a couple of years, and this is a 22-fold increase, which is very optimistic. And I'm curious to know on which basis you are founding this estimation. You do yield estimates, now you are doing estimates on outreach. So I'm curious to know what the basis is. And the second question is related to, you mentioned saltwater as a solution which is optimizing water use in crops. And I was wondering if you have anything else which is helping farmers, any other solution which is helping farmers adapt to climate change. Can I ask Hamza to reply now to the questions?
I think we, Giacomo, if you're done with your comments, then we're going to go back to Hamza and give him a chance to answer the.
Okay, so then I move on my
Okay.
short talk. I had the privilege of working at CTA for 17 years, dealing with what we were calling at that time ICTs for agriculture, and later on digitalization for agriculture. In 2016, we launched a project called Eyes in the Skies, Smart Techs on the Ground, and it was about the introduction of drone technology, unmanned aerial systems in Africa. At that time, there were no regulations. Actually, South Africa was the only country having some sort of regulation about drone governance. It was a total void. The technology was unknown. People in the news were hearing about drones used for military purposes and so on. And so there was quite a lot of hesitancy in recognizing the usefulness of the technology. In that occasion, I worked with Hamza. We assisted the African Union in coming up with Pan-African policy document recommending the use of drone technology across Africa, and that helped a lot in incentivizing the national civil aviation authorities to come up with regulations. In addition to that, and that came from the beneficiaries of the project, we assisted the setting up of an industry association of drone operators of digital service providers called Africa Goes Digital, which is currently having representatives in 21 African countries, SOVIT being one of the members of Africa Goes Digital, and Hamza is a board member as well of the. It's a non-for-profit corporation helping its members to grow, to deliver quality services, and to acquire an online reputation, which is necessary to acquire contracts and move on, but also help them in forming consortia to participate in tenders and so on and so forth. And I'm very proud of having been part of this process, which was then also granted an award, the World Summit of Information Society of last year in the category e-agriculture was given to this project. So I must say that SOVIT, in my mind, is an example of talented African youth being very innovative in a domain which has a huge potential and which can help both large, medium, and also small-scale farmers. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Giacomo. All right, so a lot of questions for you, Hamza, and I think maybe we will take those that came from our panel of discussants, and then we will turn to those that also came on the chat from participants. So, you know, Armini asked about your biggest challenges when you started, right? And in particular, what might have helped. Carlo mentioned the challenge of getting to small farmers, and I see it's a question that also came in the chat. You know, how do you make the solutions work also for the small farmers, not just for the larger ones? Do you have examples and experience to share on that? And then we have a question from Giacomo on outreach and others. So over to you.
Thank you, Marianne. Thank you indeed for the very relevant questions. Indeed, to start with Carlo, I think it's already there for smallholders, and for many reasons, many dynamics that are very strong and that we observe. I would say the first is, I remember 2018, first big agricultural fair we made, 500,000 visitors, and what the conclusion of this was the generational change you have in farming today. You can have farmers 70 years old, but with the son, 35, WhatsApp, smartphone, and saying there is no way I will farm this way. And yesterday, again, farmers in the office come in, knock in, because that's the way they do things, and we want to subscribe how we can do it, because we believe, no, given the price of nitrogen, we will have a solution to fertilize or we will not. So I think there is this generation change that is moving slowly, but creating structural change in the way farming is perceived. Having in mind that in Morocco, for example, out of 35 millions of inhabitants, 23 millions of WhatsApp accounts. And I can show you directly on WhatsApp, the farmers receives the advisory directly through their WhatsApp with the legend of what is a good crop, what is a bad crop, and how the plot is doing. And this is through WhatsApp to enable no blockage when using the solution. Technology evolution is also key. 5 years ago, when we were building with Sirad the solutions, we had no idea that it will be possible to embed all the algorithms in low-tech smartphones to ensure people to take picture and to immediately know the yields. It was crazy at this time because even good computers couldn't do it. You needed to rely on cloud computing to be able to send imagery, process, send back result. Now you have an Oppo first generation and the person gets the results in 3 minutes. And this technology evolution, facing low connectivity and enabling farmers by a simple picture to get analysis, things we saw over disease or assessment and that is now available at Sowit on yield, is a heavy technological change that will make any smartphone in the coming years a tool that is even more efficient than a tractor or than tools that cost 1,000 times the price of a low-tech smartphone. And finally, again, I will end up with this. It's not a nice to have anymore. Having an idea of quantity of water that is still available and how much you need in order to keep producing something is indeed, it was nice to have when you could have the stock of water and when you could sell your citrus at 40 cents euros per kilograms. But no, margins are tight, water is not there. What else should you do if you are not simply buying additional years of operations thanks of technology? And I believe that this switch from the nice to the must is what we are observing today and what makes people knock at the door because they don't have the choice and because technology is there to help. And the good news is that institutions are also there. And it's also answering part of the question of Giacomo. We signed an agreement with the Agricultural Transformation Agency of Ethiopia to set up our app in 6,000 tablets of extension service workers. The reach of these 6,000 extension service workers are more than 500,000 hectares. So only with this partnership with the ATA, that is well known for having implemented successfully digital technology, with their hotline receiving more than 5 million calls by farmers per year, only with this, we're getting to the 1 million quite comfortably. So I believe this challenge is simply imposed by structural dynamics that transform data into something that is not a choice, but that you need to if you still want to keep producing. And I think this was one of the main challenge, because to answer what Armin said, is when you are nice to have, it's not funny. I mean, you don't want to develop things that are nice to have. First, because farmers do not really give importance to things that are nice, because they manage urgency, cash urgency, quality urgency, operators workflow urgency, traceability, and standards are getting so complex for them, so they cannot give time to nice to have things. So I would say that the challenge in the beginning, there were mainly three. First was working with government. I think this was probably the most important challenge, and Giacomo touched upon it. We needed to publish on behalf of the African Union to get our drones in. And this is crazy for a startup to engage in so heavy processes just to get a sensor in. And I think that I wouldn't be Reaganian saying the federal state is the problem and not the solution, because I saw so many examples in different countries of the government being very proactive, but overall, when you need 6 months to import a sensor, you cannot believe you will do it through innovation, because by the time you get it, you're not state of the art anymore. And I think that this challenge obliged us to really work more through lobbying, political ways, in order to ensure that everyone is aware about the need of farmers to get information, and that everyone will win from this information. And I would say that the second challenge is also working with international organizations, because they are very important, because they are front runners in terms of perceiving the critical challenges and in terms of addressing them proactively. However, as a startup with 30 critical resources working on a daily basis heavily, it's very hard to comply with so much complexity when starting a project. And you couldn't afford to spend days complying with it when farmers are on the field expecting the solutions, and when, as Giacomo said, digital solutions are changing every day. So I would say that the challenge there was to engage with the right interlocutors within the organization, those who believe that solutions are critical and that they need to be scaled up now to kind of leverage them as catalysts of the change. And this was very complex because these are big organizations, very hard to navigate, very hard to get involved. And I see today in the call 2 persons, for example, Merichel and Nabila Gouroum, that are 2 persons that were very instrumental in driving change. Because from a government perspective or from a public perspective, because at the end of the day, you need to have someone that take risks. And if no one want to take risk, it's statu quo. And that is not what we want in the continent. So I believe this was complex for us because we were naive and we didn't have, I would say, the right understanding of the dynamics. So basically, that was the 2 challenges, I would say, regulation and working with large organizations that are enabling the scale. And finally, to answer Giacomo on probably the most important topic here, which is environment, we are actually developing a solution now that enables to assess carbon sequestration, and that would enable to provide our farmers with a good understanding on their environmental footprint from one hand, so exactly carbon sequestration at their end on their plot, but also we are working with an international organization based in the US to be able to take this to the market. So we've done this because it's a demand first from our customers, because the norms, European norms, EU norms, start imposing now some heavy amends, fines on this. So the market started structuring the CO2 quotas. And because no technology allows to have a very precise assessment of this, and then to be able to take it to the market, creating this additional revenue line that would probably provide a breath for farmers today that are experiencing multiple troubles.
Thank you very much, Hamza. You've covered a lot of ground in terms of the questions that were raised. And I see we have a second batch of questions that have come through the chat. So let me pick up a few of them and see if you want to answer them. And then we'll also see if any of our discussants want to complement and react to some of those questions. So there was a question about connectivity and whether connectivity is a barrier for adoption, and questions about how do solutions work also offline, sorry. So that was one of them. There was also a second question about digital solutions for farmer organizations, associations, cooperatives in particular, when we're dealing with small farmers. Do you have them as your clients? What's been your experience with that? A question as well on reaching scale for you. What do you see as the main barriers? Are you thinking about growth and the next steps, or maybe expanding to new countries or in country? What are the main barriers? What would provide solutions for SOWIT and others operating in the same space? There was a question about who owns the data that you're using, and what kind of data privacy and protections for farmers, for users. And also a request to say more about your experience with the smaller farmers, right? Those that have just a few hectares. You've mentioned you provide services free of charge to them. What results do you see if you're able to comment on that? Thank you very much.
Okay, so start with this smallholder. If the example of the mobile app, when you saw the farmer taking a picture of the tree, this does not require any connectivity, nothing. Everything is on the smartphone. The processing of the imagery is done by the CPU of the smartphone, and the result is provided immediately. So there are more and more solutions that enable to do processing without connectivity. Some require indeed, so when you need, for example, to update farmer with the weather data, you need to contact farmer. So when connectivity is available, you can use a push notification. When it's not, you can use a short message, or farmer can get access to a USSD service that is can be operated without any connectivity. So with just cellular data. So we are working now technologies enabling more and more to provide direct processing based on imagery and based on information. And each time the farmer gets connectivity, so maybe he's going through a city or something like that, every information that is needed for the coming days is cached, is sourced in the phone, in the app, and cached, so it's available the next time the farmer opens the app. When it comes to working with smallholders, so part of the services indeed are free, because free is only a way to characterize things, but actually there is nothing free at the end of the day, because these crowdsourced data is what enables algorithms to be more and more precise. So who owns the data? Farmers, of course. We are RGPD compliant. I mean, we comply with the most restrictive personal data regulation, which is the EU one. Farmer can delete this data anytime. We have the right, as long as the personal data are made anonymous, to use the data in order to improve our services. This is the trade-off, and this is how we succeed crowdsourcing, and this is how we succeed scaling, because there is no way you would observe a wheat growing a certain way in Morocco and believing it will do the same in Ethiopia. So if you don't have this access, massive access to ground truth data, there is no way it's possible to move forward. These then the other question that was related to working with organizations that work with farmers, we do. Not only we've been working with the Ministry of Agriculture, for example, in Morocco, covering more than 16,000 hectares of smallholder farmers, working with the Ministry of Agriculture in Ethiopia, working with the Association of Cereal Producers in Morocco, providing them with very preferential packages in order to enable to scale the use of the solutions. So we do work through them, and we believe there is no way to work with smallholder directly, except if we fundraise tomorrow $200 million. That's the cost of acquisition of smallholders is so high that there is no way you could go directly, and it's not even something you want, because you want to work with partners and to work with trust relationships that are already well established. And finally, the question about this challenge to scale. To be honest, the main challenge today to scale SOIT is talent, is finding the right talents. It's very hard for us. I mean, Giacomo touched upon indeed a lot of SOIT agronomists and technical managers are female. This wasn't a choice. This is also out of competency, even if indeed we have a policy that encourage certain gender parity, but talent is very hard to source, and it's what Africa is lacking critically today. There are a lot of African talents, but as you know, they don't really engage in the continent, and it's completely understandable what outcome and what perspective is the continent offering. And we believe that what we offer is a vision for a continent that could provide solutions for the world. And when working with Danone company, we started working in Morocco and ended up working in Brazil and Russia. Russian farmers were surprised. Oh, there is an African company, they come from here and they help us with the data. Yes, it's possible. And I believe that this perspective is really what lacks a bit in the environment, and is really what we should push forward if we want to keep growing, because only the sky is the limit as long as you have the right people to build and to keep building the momentum.
Thank you very much, Hamza. Very detailed and excellent answers. I'm just going to turn to our discussants now and give you a break and see if any one of them would also like to come in on some of the questions that participants have asked. And I see, Carlo, you have your hand up, so over to you.
Thank you, Marianne. Yes, I wanted to point out two elements that Hamza just gave, which I think are very important. One is said that data can be exchanged against services for free. You know, I think I understood well, right, Hamza? So you have a data against service model. And that is amazing and I've seen that already. But that means that with the data acquisition, data gathering pays for the service. So you can basically deliver to small scale farmer free of charge as the business model that Sowit has. And this is quite important. And the other thing is that he said that they are complying with the EU data governance regulation, which is in fact the most stringent in the world. So if you comply with that one, it means you can go anywhere, you will be okay. So he has two incredibly strong assets there. So just wanted to point out that, you know, it's quite good. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Carlo. Armine or Giacomo, any thoughts from your side?
No, I just have a follow-up kind of a question about the data privacy. It would be interesting to hear about the rationale. We know that, you know, the US, for example, data privacy and the EU are very different, no? So it would be interesting to know about the rationale for going for the EU. And also, did you feel like the lack of the data privacy regulations in any of the countries where you piloted your activity were an issue or obstacle, or actually opposite, they were helping you out because the kind of the area was free of the strict regulations? So for the startup, it was easier in the beginning.
Definitely, Armin, to answer this, it's a very, very fair point. Africa is an Eldorado from a certain point of view, because yes, in the beginning you have some government and some regulations that makes it very hard for you to get to certain technology, but you have also the ability to accelerate the iteration from field to lab, because you don't start setting contracts with everyone to just get sampling on a field. So it's a point that is fair and that is very positive when you work in the African continent, is to what extent you can accelerate data acquisition without being, I would say, restricted. And as Carlos said, as long as you start with your fundraising, as long as we started with the seed fundraising, we needed to be 100% compliant with the KYC and the different regulations. And we went for the RGPD, not because we believe, not because we were based partly in France, but because we believe that with data, you need to be very, very robust, especially what we see in terms of data. I mean, if you have access to certain of our database in terms of field prediction, I can tell you know what Morocco is producing in terms of citrus. And this data could be very strategic to any country in the world that has plans in order to commercialize citrus. And this is not something that is, I mean, funny. This is a responsibility. And I believe with this kind of responsibilities, you need to be very strict. So I prefer complying with something very strict and not taking risks than taking risks over data that could be very critical in the long run.
I have a question for Hamza. Adoption of innovation is a challenge. Adoption of technological innovation is even a more challenging challenge. What is your strategy? Who do you send on the field to interact with whom? I mean, FAO says the average age of farmers in Africa is around 60 years of age. Now, are you dealing with this kind of target group, or how does it work? How do you interact with the people on the ground?
Yes, I think here there are three aspects that are important. First is culture. I mean, for example, Giacomo, you know very well Ethiopia. You wouldn't go to Amhara sending someone from another region, let's say. So to explain something about a plot. So there is something that is cultural. If you go to southern Morocco, you would send someone from the Gharb. This is practical. I'm saying this because this is what was observed from a statistical point of view in terms of creating relationship and transmitting information. Meaning when working in business, a lot of things are scalable, but human and culture is not. So you need to take into account in your strategy of delivering product, there is a deep human aspect that will encourage use of information and transmission that you need to rationalize in a certain way. not creating crazy theories, but enabling a bit of efficiency when driving the operations. So for culture, the person that manages the different regions are also chosen for certain reasons because they have the codes and are enabling them to scale the use of information. Then you have the aspect also related to gender. And as you know, Giacomo, you have worked in certain countries like Mauritania or Morocco, or I mean, there are some certain things that you should consider when delivering an information to a farmer. And I mean, in certain way, certain agronomists couldn't deliver the information simply because there is a ceiling. And this needs to be taken into account when you are delivering the information in order to first have the farmers acknowledging that you are a company transmitting something that is credible. And when he is or she is, then you can move forward and overcome these kind of challenges. And the last thing here, I think that is very important, is the farmer has the power. You don't have anything. You are just someone circulating information. And this needs to be very clear, because what people are afraid of today is that data take power over them. And it's a real problem, because by the time you get to the farm, the operators think that you are going to take their job, because you observed that irrigation is not right, because you observed that fertilizer was just thrown on the edge and not put on the field, because you observed mismanagement. And this we need to be very cautious with, because we are not here to destructure the existing ecosystems and workflows and relationships. We're only here to spread better information, and they are responsible for taking it or not. And I believe that over this, a lot of companies that do not have the understanding of local, regional, departmental dynamics end up having a negative footprint with good intentions, simply because it's not working as a bulldozer that you will achieve change, but it's really trying to find the right curves and trying to provide the right information and to remain on the threshold that make you just an information provider and nothing else.
Thank you very much, Hamza. I think we could continue for hours. It's a fascinating conversation. Personally, I've learned a lot, and I'm sure it's the same for our participants. We've reached the end of our time, though, so I'm going to close the session first with a big thanks to you and congratulations on what you've presented. Really impressive. Big thanks to our discussants as well for sharing some deep insights and knowledge about the topic. We've covered a lot of ground, from what it takes to work with smallholders, and your very important point about it's not a nice thing to have. It's a must now. It's a must in the current economic context in which farmers operate today. We've talked about some of the startup challenges and the challenges in scaling up, and your point about talent, right? And how do we make sure that we have the right talents in the region for all these innovations to scale up quickly. We've talked about connectivity challenges and how they can be overcome, and the role of the fast speed of technological innovation, and that's also very really fascinating field. You've mentioned regulations a few times, right, in terms of and the role of a government there, and others in terms of creating the enabling environment and catching up with the speed of technological innovations and what's happening in the private sector. We've talked about data and issues around data privacy as well, and how those challenges can be addressed. And then we've finished with placing the farmer at the center. And I think one of the the strengths for having listened to you, one of the strengths of SOIT is really that you're very client oriented, right? And farmer centered, and looking for solutions that make sense and address real issues. And I think that's the core of it, and one of the reasons of the success of SOIT. So congratulations once again. Many thanks to everyone for joining us today for this really fascinating session. bye to everyone now, and looking forward to the continuation of such discussions.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Au revoir. Merci. Merci, Hamza.
Merci,
Hamza.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Giacomo, and thank you, Carlo.